So for setting up the file for doing the lip syncing, old school style is frame by frame animation. And you can do it this way. And what FrameSync that we'll look at next allows us to do is to speed up the process, but the basic mechanics of what you will be doing are going to be the same. So currently I have on one layer I have my celery stalk, and on one layer I have my mouth and eyes. So that if I want to work with these, I can now even take the mouth and separate it from the eyes and choose distribute to layers, because when I created it I drew the mouth and eyes on the same layer. So I'm just going to get them separated, and I could finish renaming all my layers if I want. I know for this particular example I'm going to need approximately 124 frames, give or take a little bit. Now if I go ahead and watch this, I'll see that the mouth is just moving. I don't have any audio in it, but the mouth is moving. So it looks like it's talking. We have no idea what it's saying. It's not really lining up, but it looks like it's talking. So it's a good first step. Now to bring my audio into this, what's useful is always to put your audio on its own layer. And I will label it audio. So if I have audio and it's on its own layer and it's ready to go, at that point I can bring my audio into this project. Sound is a property of a frame, so I will click on this frame and then I can see that my property panel changes and shows me sounds. Currently I have no sounds in my project. We can check the library, see that they're not there. So I need to import a sound. Importing a sound is accomplished by going under File and choosing Import. Now whether I choose Import to Stage or Library is irrelevant. With audio it always just dumps it into the library. It doesn't put it on my stage, so it doesn't really matter. So typically I would just hit Command R to choose Import Sound. Comes up, I can go and choose my sound file that I've created for this demonstration, and it's vegetables.wave. When you're recording sounds, Flash will accept up to CD quality, 44 kilohertz, 16-bit, nothing better, but it will certainly accept lower quality audio. Two rules of thought on working with sound are optimize it before you bring it in and don't let Flash do any further compression, or let Flash do all the compression and start with very high quality audio. It depends on how much or how long your audio is for what the best solution is. If you're doing a 5 or 10 minute long animation with a lot of audio, you might want to bring in low quality audio for working on the project, and then the final step replace it with higher quality audio, and that will just allow Flash to work a little bit better with less CPU and memory usage. So you work with a low quality placeholder piece of audio that then you substitute in the final version in your finished publishing of the file. So to bring in the audio into my library, File, Import, Import to Stage, choose my audio file. In this case it's a wave, hit OK. It's now part of my library. I can go to Properties, click on the keyframe for my audio layer, go to Sound, and I can choose that particular sound. Now the sound is part of my project. I can scrub the timeline and see that the sound takes approximately 119 frames. Now, if I scrub my timeline, I will notice that it's not making any noise. It's not playing, it's not doing anything. But if I were to publish this movie or test this movie...
Why must everybody eat green vegetables? Why must everybody...
So we can see at that point the sound is playing, we just don't get to hear it because of the sync mode. If you recall from previous lessons, Flash has different sync modes that you're able to use with your audio. The most common one that it defaults to is event. The event that triggers this audio to play is this keyframe is encountered by the playback head and says, oh, I will start playing the sound. If I want to be able to scrub and hear the time while I'm in Flash, I need to change to stream. If I change to stream,
why must everybody
I can now scrub my audio and actually hear it. It's much like audio on a video timeline. This is useful when you're trying to sync animation with the audio because you can look at the waveform and see what's there, but it's kind of hard to sometimes know what that particular waveform represents. If you know your audio well, you'll have some gist of it, but it's not going to give you an exact kind of understanding. But by switching to stream, we can now scrub the timeline and hear the audio. So far, I have my artwork, I have my audio, and now I want the mouth to line up with the audio so it doesn't just look like a runaway mouth
green vegetables
occurring with that audio. So the mouth is going to need some keyframes. So now I'm going to point out some important characteristics that were built into the mouth as part of this. So if I double click on the mouth symbol, it brings me into the mouth's symbol, and I can see that the mouth is comprised of 10 individual pieces of artwork. Each one of these pieces of artwork corresponds with a particular phoneme or sound. So I have my closed mouth, and then I'm going to have my consonants of M's, where you purse your lips, you pull it tight, M's, B's, P's. Then I'm going to have my O's and my F and V sound, where your teeth come down and bite on your lip. Now, when you're trying to draw or create the artwork to go with a different mouth animation, what's really useful is to stare in a mirror. And you make the sound a bunch of times and start studying what you're saying. The trick in lip syncing is you are not animating the letters. You are animating to sound. This is why we don't need 26 individual mouth shapes, because we make the same mouth shape or a similar mouth shape for a variety of sounds. So knowing that, we can get away with anywhere from 7 to 9 discrete separate mouth shapes to build the animation, because we just correspond them to the sounds. So a handout was posted on D2L as well as provided to you today in the group of files that has the mouth shapes in a numbered form. And if you compare the numbers, you will see that they start fairly close to what's here, except that the first frame in this mouth is the neutral or closed mouth. Now, these red flags that are showing up in the timeline are called frame labels. The flag represents a frame label, and if I click on that frame label, I can notice in my properties that label has a name. Frame labels are part of a keyframe. When you have a keyframe, you can give it a label. The label shows up in the properties, and you just type in that name. Now, doing so, I have, in this case, the MBP sound. I have my O's. I have my F and V. I have my ah sound, ah, which is different than the U or O, where you pull your lips together. We have L, E. Now, E is often a similar shape to A, E. So you can see a long A is going to actually share a very similar mouth structure to the E. So when you're choosing it, A, E, you don't really have to change your mouth much to make that different sound. But if you're doing ah, it's going to be very different with the mouth. So recognize that it's the sound you're trying to make, or the sound you're hearing in the audio file, that you're matching to the mouth shape, not the letters. So we're corresponding the mouth shape. W's. And this one is my general consonant sound. So where the mouth is opening, making a consonant sound. Now, having these different shapes allows me to then correspond them, and I can see each one corresponds to a number. This is frame 2, this is frame 3, 4, 5, all the way up to frame 10. So now, knowing that, if I go back to my main timeline, what I can do is scrub until I find the point of the audio starting, and I'm going to put in a keyframe and tell this mouth symbol I want it to play a particular shape. Now, if you notice right now, the mouth is changing every single frame. So we have 24 mouths playing per second, so it's looping through about 2.5 times every second. But if I take this mouth layer and this mouth symbol and look at it, graphic symbols have a looping property. The looping property means they can loop, or we can say play once, where it will play through once and then stop. Or, in this case, what's useful for lip syncing, I can choose single frame. This is the magic bullet for doing lip syncing. Graphic symbol, single frame. That is the most important thing to remember. Graphic symbol, single frame. Once I do that, you will notice it says first, and there's a number here. So I start out with my closed mouth. Now I want to do the W sound for Y. Because if we remember,
Why must
so it's Y must. So right as the sound is starting here, I can then click in my timeline. I can insert a keyframe by hitting F6. I can click on the mouse. Oh, I inserted a keyframe on the wrong layer. Let me try again. F6. Click on the mouth. Change this to 10, which is my W sound. And we can see it now updated. Y. And I am going to switch to my A sound. Now, sometimes I have to guess and try and figure out which mouth shape seems appropriate. So you spend a lot of time talking to yourself, changing your mouth shape. Wah. Okay, it's kind of the ah sound for the Y. Wah, ah. Okay, so I'm going to go with that. So I can just hit F6. And now because it is right here, I can now change this to the eh symbol, which is going to be frame 5. And let's see, where was must?
Why must every
So right here, this part in the waveform is M for must. So I know that this is going to be the M. So I'm going to change that to frame number 2 right here. Sometimes you will just go frame, frame, frame. Other times you will go through and hit some key parts and then go back and fine tune between words to get enough changing shape of your mouth. So now this is my M that I need, which is 2. So I have Y. And now if because Y to the M, the mouth closes on the M sound, so it actually is probably going to be okay to just leave it open without having to transition to an intermediate mouth with it in a partial open or closed shape, because you know that's a pretty open form that's close. Y must. So the sound, that's my short A, that will be frame 5. So I F6, click on it, change this to 5, must. And now this with my S is going to be frame 9. Oh. And it helps to hit the correct keyboard. Must. And now I'm going to close the mouth right here. So this will put it back to frame 1.
Why must everybody?
All right, Y must, and you can now just continue on and continue on. So this is doing it frame by frame, by hand, using only the built-in features of Flash. It can be done. It's not the most intuitive way, but remember, set it to a graphic symbol. So your mouth shape is a graphic symbol. The instance of that on the stage you set to play once, single frame. So you set your mouth to be single frame, and then you just keep changing which frame number you want it to play. And it will then play what you need as you work your way through the audio. Time consuming, yes, but better than redrawing the mouth each and every frame for an 80-minute long feature-length cartoon. So this would be an improvement. It's not perfect, but it's certainly better than doing it by hand.